It's Down to Business with Jack Miller. Forget what they teach you in school. This is real life, not Wall Street, but Main Street. A real show on what's really involved with starting and running a business with all the ups and downs. Our guests will answer your questions and provide you with valuable information. Stay tuned and join in the conversation.
When the earth was created, the word came.
Welcome back, world. I appreciate you sticking with us for Hillel Presser. Hillel, I appreciate you staying with us. Again, it's super excited to have you here. Feel free to call in, listeners, at 305-541-2350. Check me out on Facebook at Jack Miller. It's at Down to Business. I almost forgot my name there for a second. Check Hillel out at assetprotectionattorneys.com. I saw a great quote on one of Hillel's websites, and it said something like, for every 60 minutes you spend making money, you should spend 60 seconds thinking about how to protect it or save it. And it is true. Hillel, to follow up on a few of your points, I've seen when these lawyers go after people, they go after them in a merciless way. So sometimes it catches good, honest people off guard. I had a client a couple months ago, and I'll never forget the story. He was in the trucking business in North Jersey. It was him, his two sons, and the bank called their loan, even though they were paying it perfectly. The guy was about to lose everything. And I told him what I went through, and I told him, we talked and about engaging me and things like that. And he says, he said this, he told me, he goes, and this is exactly what he said. He said he did 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, and he goes, fighting with these banks and losing everything was 10 times worse. So if he would have been with you,
so terrible.
Yeah, but I deal with that all the time. So that's why I'm such a proponent of somebody using you. So I think everyone should use you.
I appreciate that.
No, I my pleasure. I can't even tell you how I believe it. And again, especially the people who are young and just starting business, because you start a business, you sign your name on the dotted line with some bank, you borrow money, you think everything's going to go great, you forget about it, and then all of a sudden there's a problem, and no one thinks there's going to be a problem, but there is. And they wound up, the banks have you by the you-know-what. The attorneys are merciless. They lose everything a lot of the times. But if they have good asset protection, they're saved. And I always tell people, a lot of people make the mistake, at least I see, they touch their unprotected assets. A lot of people, when business goes bad, the first thing they do is dip into the retirement accounts. So by the end, 2-3 years later, not only don't they have the business, they don't have the retirement accounts, and they're really up the creek without a paddle. So could we talk about if there's ever a time when it's too late? We know that it's clear the earlier you start, the better. But what does a guy do who's, I'm just going to say, a mature guy, he has a business, he has some kind of problem? Is it too late where he can't do anything, or there are different things you can do at different stages of the game?
Yeah, so, if somebody's proactively protecting their assets, then we can legally and ethically protect all of their assets. So, for example, you have a client that's worth $1 million, and he has no lawsuits and no judgments. Well, we can legally and ethically protect the full $1 million. Take the same client who has $1 million, but he comes to us after he's been sued for $200,000. We can only legally and ethically protect $800,000. The difference, he's worth $1 million, he's being sued for $200,000, so we can only legally and ethically protect $800,000. If you try and protect more than the $800,000, it could be what's called a fraudulent transfer. And the legal definition of a fraudulent transfer is essentially when you have a present or potential creditor, you transfer assets out of your name for less than fair market value, and as a result, the creditor doesn't get paid. And obviously this is done with the intent to hinder, delay, or defraud a creditor. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't protect yourself after you've been sued. Like I said, if there's no lawsuits, no judgments, well, then you can legally and ethically protect everything you own. If there is a lawsuit, well, then you can only protect the amount that you're not being sued for. So in our example, client has $1 million. He's being sued for $200,000. He can legally and ethically protect $800,000. But the pretty cool thing here is that the creditor, as long as you're not talking bankruptcy, doesn't get to pick which 800,000 you protect. So if you have a client who's worth $1 million and he's being sued for 200,000, if he's worth 800,000 in liquid assets and 200,000 in miscellaneous equipment, machinery, cars, etc., there's nothing that says he can't protect the 800,000 in liquid as long as he leaves, let's call it the $200,000 of crap exposed, excuse my language. So there are things you can do after you've been sued, but of course, never to the extent of what you can do proactively.
Gotcha. Okay, so the sooner the better, but never too late. Another kind of thing I want to talk about is, and maybe people don't consider it asset protection, but I think it's in the family of it, is when you're forming an LLC or a partnership, I'll just talk about an LLC where you have operating agreements. There's a difference between operating agreements, whether you use the canned kind that come off the internet or a lawyer, or you get a specific kind that you would use that protect the assets. Because I've seen cases and been involved with cases where the documentation in the partnership agreement or LLC operating agreements are more friendly to one party than another. So I think that's critical too. And I would encourage anybody who's forming an LLC for any purpose to give you a call. And I believe, and just correct me if I'm wrong, that I'm right on that, and you have different documents that are more protective than some of the others.
You're 100% correct. And, whenever you're forming any entity, whether it be an LLC, a limited partnership, et cetera, protection comes down to a couple different keys. Number one is what jurisdiction are you forming it in? For example, one state might have better asset protection laws than another state. And those laws can change potentially year by year. Because think about it. Whoever has the best asset protection laws probably gets the most companies registered, which means they make the most money. So what might be the best state or jurisdiction today might not be the best state or jurisdiction 5 years from now. But you're 100% correct that the absolute most important thing are the agreements. So if it's an LLC, we're talking the operating agreement. If it's a limited partnership, we're talking a partnership agreement. The courts rule and govern based on those internal contracts. And if that's the case, why not have an internal agreement or contract that has all the asset protection laws, everything that's going to be good for you in case you get sued, and all the anti-creditor clauses, everything that's going to be bad for a potential creditor if they try and come after you. So whenever forming a company, you want to look what jurisdiction are you setting it up in. Number two, you want to have, ironclad, bulletproof asset protection agreements. And number three, also privacy plays a large role. In a lot of companies and in a lot of jurisdictions, we can actually set it up so everything is private and it's not public record.
Yeah, along that note, I want to make clear that I don't think anything that any of us talking about is not disclosing information to the creditors. It's just making it hard for them to get and monetize.
Yeah, and I tell every client that presume at some point they're going to have to disclose what they have, because if you lose a lawsuit and they sit you down for a deposition under oath or have you fill out a financial affidavit under oath and they ask you the questions, you must tell them the truth. You cannot perjure yourself. You always want to make sure everything you're doing is legal and ethical. So asset protection is certainly not about hiding or secrecy. It's about protection, and with a good asset protection plan, you should literally be able to tell a creditor everything you have and where it is. They just shouldn't be able to get to it. But with that being said, there's no reason why we need to volunteer information to the public, before you're getting sued, or even while you're getting sued before there's a judgment against you. So while an asset protection plan certainly should not rely on privacy, I do think it's a big role that should play in your plan.
100% right, 100% right. I also caution people when they fill out loan applications, make sure you put certain disclosures in there. And I know Hillel can help you with that because you want to disclose everything. But there was a case a couple years ago where a guy gave a value on a piece of real estate in the size of his business. A bank made him a loan. Of course, it went south, and the bank sued him for fraud and misrepresentation. So you got to be careful with what you tell a bank and what you don't tell a bank and the proper disclosure on it.
Yeah, and it gets tough sometimes because a lot of times it's subjective, not objective. But I can't agree more. I mean, everything you do, you always want to make sure you're doing everything legally and ethically and always be on the up and up.
Yeah, on that, I just also have to caution people, and I promise I'm not getting a penny from Hillel, but I feel like I'm a commercial for him. If you Google asset protection, you could buy something on the internet for, I don't know, $99 that claim to be asset protection friendly, but I would caution you against that, and I would tell you got to go with a real pro who knows what they're doing, who focuses on something, what they're doing. Even local attorneys who aren't experts in this can get you in trouble. So I would just caution everyone to go to somebody who knows what they're doing. If not, they're going to get themselves into real trouble.
And I'd just like to add to that, probably one of the biggest and most important things with asset protection is you shouldn't be looking for, a one-size-fits-all or any sort of cookie-cutter work. If someone's offering that to you, run the other way. Everybody's personal assets are different, everybody's business assets are different, and everybody's potential threats, creditors, and liabilities are different. So what might work for you might not work for me and vice versa. So you definitely, no matter who you use, make sure that you put together an individualized and customized and tailored plan that fits your specific needs.
I would encourage everyone to get Hillel's books because I think if they read through your books, they'll get good ideas because I know you offer offshore trust and there's all kinds of liabilities if you're a director of a public company. And like you say, one size doesn't fit all. But if you read some of these books that you and Arnold Goldstein put out, the reader will get a lot of really valuable information.
Yeah, our law firm, we have a nationwide practice. We do both domestic and international asset protection, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with international asset protection. There is something very wrong with setting up international entities and not reporting them to the government, the Treasury Department, the IRS. So, again, no matter what you're doing, always make sure it's legal and ethical. And, what I'd be happy to do, Jack, you've been a good friend, and anything certainly we can do to help out your listeners, if anybody goes to our website, it's www.assetprotectionattorneys.com. If they fill out to contact us, as long as they mention that they heard about us on your show, I will actually send them a complimentary copy of some of the latest books that I authored on asset protection. No charge, no shipping charge, no gimmicks. Just try and help educate the public.
I appreciate that. Hillel, let me ask you a question. Could you put a good word in with me for my wife? She made me lunch today, and I haven't told her I loved her yet today. Hopefully she's listening. So tell.
Well, I hope she knows how lucky she is to have you. Very smart, caring, loving guy, and I can't say enough good things about you, Jack. You've been a good friend.
No, I'm just teasing you. She actually sent me a text this afternoon telling me how much she loves me. After we were watching some stupid show last night, and I asked her if she'd marry me after 29 years again. So she said yeah, but
I better ask my wife tonight.
I'm just teasing you. Hillel, what we have to go for another commercial in a minute. I know you're busy. If you had to give one piece of advice to people listening, to the general public, and keep in mind you're having people listening who are young, college, who are just starting out, and you have people listening who are very mature, who are CEOs of public companies, who have big estates. But if you can kind of generalize it, other than go to your website and get information and call you, what would that be before we go?
First of all, understand that there is something that you can do. Whether you ultimately choose to do something or not is irrelevant, but understand proactively that there are steps you can take to protect yourself because you don't want to be saying, woulda, coulda, shoulda. After that, educate yourself. Whether you go to my website, whether you read my books, whether you read other people's books, but learn. Knowledge is power. I don't care if you never implement it. I don't care if you never do anything, but educate yourself. And probably the most important thing is inventory what you have. Sit down one day and make a list of every single asset you have, from the liquid assets to the real estate to the cars to the inheritances. What I find is when people come to my office, they have a lot more than they think they do. What about your phone number? If that started ringing to the competition, what's that worth? What about the domain names? What's that worth? What about the couple $100,000 or a couple $1 million inheritance you might get? So there's so many other assets that we just don't think about on a regular basis that have great value to us that we want to protect. So a lot of times people think they don't have enough to protect, but they always have more than they think they do.
Hillel, I really appreciate it. I want everyone to go to assetprotectionattorneys.com. Check Hillel out. I'm telling you, he's the man. If you want some interesting reading or what, if you're going on a cruise, go out and buy his books, or he said he'll give you some of them for free and read them, because you will learn so much by going to Hillel. I can't thank you enough. I personally thank you. You are the best, my friend. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and anything I can do to help, I'm here for you, and I hope it was educational, timely, and valuable.
As I say to my wife every night, it was good for me. I hope it was half as good for you.
Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, buddy. I'm telling you, everyone should be getting his books, because it is a scary world, and these attorneys are really, I don't even know how to describe them when they go after you. They're just professional suers, and that's how they make their living. In the meanwhile, we go from Hillel Presser to my good friend Todd Cohen. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Jack. It's great to be back. Every day I wake up on this side of the grass is a good day, as they say, and that was just a fantastic guest and a great dialogue that you guys had, and I hope all the listeners out there took something away from that can help them going forward. I certainly did, and thank you both for that.
I am really Hillel's a great guy. On top of being really knowing his stuff, I'll tell you, it's near and dear to me, because I speak to people all the time who don't go through asset protection and need it, and they come out on the other side and they're in big trouble. So it's just critical. Did you have a nice week, Todd?
I have had a great week, although I have some sick children at home.
Nothing major, I hope.
No, nothing major, just enough to keep us up at night. My wife is a trooper. I'm trying to be, but
it's not contagious, is it?
Probably.
A little bit. I'm a little bit of a germaphobe, so I no offense. I'm not shaking your hand.
I'm a lot of a germaphobe.
No tongue. I hear you.
Do not lick him.
I promise. Wait, Wanda, who did you say don't lick?
I just told him do not lick him. Whatever he does, don't lick you.
Thank you, Wanda. I
is
appreciate
the implication?
That advice.
You didn't say that about you. Is that the implication?
You know what?
I can't wait to be licked.
I came to the studio today hoping to lick Jack, and now my dreams are crushed. So thanks
time for
a
break.
All right. On that note,
do we need to take a break now? Oh, we really need to take. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to come back with Todd Cohen, Commercial Corner, and we are going to talk commercial real estate, my friend.